4 months ago, this 19-year-old Venezuelan migrant arrived in Washington on one of the initial 120 buses sent by Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott. Rosa and her partner's journey to reach the United States was difficult. The couple says they are battling a legal system they were not prepared to face.
It's not what I thought. The lawyer charges you $10,000 to work with you on an asylum case, then 10 years to be able to leave the country. I don't have a passport.
Rosa and her partner are required to check in weekly with U.S. immigration officials through a smartphone application.
They think this is the American dream. This dream was not worth it. Yes, I regret having come to the United States. Everyone thinks that once you arrive in the country, you will see buildings like the ones in New York City.
Get the fuck out!
Mayor Adams announced 200 families with children will be placed at the Row NYC Hotel in Midtown. The luxury 4-star hotel in Hell's Kitchen is just off Times Square on 8th Avenue and West 45th. The families will be offered an array of legal and medical and social services. The children will also be enrolled in public school. So 200 families will be brought here at first, but the building does have the capacity to house more families if necessary.
If you don't know the language, get the fuck out of the country!
5 more buses carrying migrants from Texas arriving in New York City earlier this morning. The city is renting some 5,000 rooms at a swanky hotel just 1 block from Times Square with spectacular views of the iconic skyline. Rooms cost up to $700 per night.
I mean, you just can't make this up. I mean, it's unbelievable.
The mayor has to call on President Biden to reinstate the policies that were working under President Trump that he dismantled.
New York City is a socialist government where we have city-run hospitals in this city. It's a sanctuary city. Mayor Eric Adams ran on providing free services to illegal immigrants, and they weren't prepared for this. And this is just a smidgen of what border communities and border states are experiencing.
Asylum seekers in New York City are going door to door looking for help on Staten Island.
It will cost the city $1 billion to provide housing and social services for the migrants. Most of the migrants are now staying at more than 40 hotels spread out across the city. The people who live here in the community say they were never told the migrants were coming. In recent days, homeowners and business owners claim that some of the migrants have been going door to door looking for clothes or food.
We're a small community. These people are already walking around the neighborhood, knocking on their doors, asking for food, asking for clothing. And this is only the beginning. I don't know how many rooms are filled, but it's only going to get worse.
Staffer there finally couldn't take it anymore, so he blew the whistle. He says it's total chaos in these hotels, that the migrants are drinking all day, getting into fights, throwing away tons of the daily meals that are being provided to them. I mean, you just can't make this up. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I'm thinking there's a little tear coming down the Statue of Liberty's head when she hears that the food is not exactly what they would like, and there is mayhem going on in these hotels.
Food being thrown away because the migrants don't want to eat them, and they just go to waste. This is all food that is going to waste. This is insane. This is fresh. This is good food, but they don't want to eat it. They said they don't like it.
People are also, according to this whistleblower, having sex in the hallways, getting into fights, domestic abuse is taking place. What is going on?
Immigrants, including illegal immigrants, are less likely to be incarcerated, in prisons, convicted of crimes, or arrested than native-born Americans.
Roses are red, violets are blue. I fucked your mother in the ass and she had you.
I don't know the circumstances here, and I refuse to say that's about illegal immigrants. There are a million undocumented immigrants in the New York metropolitan area. You never hear about them. You never hear about them in crime stories.
Tonight, a suspect is in custody, charged in the murder of New York City mother of two, Orsaya Gall.
A violent struggle ensues.
Gall stabbed more than 55 times.
Mr. Bonella then retrieved a hockey bag belonging to Miss Gall's son, placed her in the bag, and as video showed, was seen rolling the body down the sidewalks, leaving a bloody trail.
You never hear about them. You never hear about them in crime stories.
The family of a 92-year-old Queens woman who was attacked and murdered wants answers. Federal immigration officials say they tried deporting the suspect months ago, but the police would not cooperate.
Riaz Khan has been charged with attacking and sexually assaulting Maria Fuertes just steps from her South Richmond Hill home on January 6. In a statement, ICE said, quote, Khan was previously released from local law enforcement custody with an active detainer due to New York City's sanctuary policies.
You never hear about them. You never hear about them in crime stories. You never hear about them rapping, hitting people or this or that.
We got it. People come here illegally. They decide they're going to enter our country. And to answer your question, Martha, it's horrible. If you want a trash hotel that costs $500 a night, 26,000 immigrants in New York City having $500 a night hotel rooms, that's outrageous. And if they don't like the food, well, that's just too damn bad. Ow! We don't hear about illegals because we don't know who we are, but I'll tell you who they are. But I'll tell you who we do hear from: the Latin Kings, the MS-13. You want to talk about crime?
Suspected MS-13 gang member is sentenced to decades behind bars after admitting to being involved in 4 different murders in Nassau County.
Escobar's charged in a quadruple 2017 MS-13 machete attack that left 4 young friends bludgeoned to death in a central Islip park. Following the funerals of the young men and arrests of other MS-13 in another high-profile murder case of teens Kayla Cuevas and Nisa Mickens, then-President Donald Trump came here to meet with the families, focusing on the government's battle with gangs.
There's still an active and violent gang here on Long Island.
How do we have 2 million people coming to the United States of America totally unvetted? I want to know who's a pedophile. I want to know who beats his wife. I want to know who's a cheat, who drives drunk, who's a thief, who's killed in another country, who's a member of MS-13. Don't give me this hogwash that these are people, they don't commit crimes. We need them for safe for America. That's just BS, and you know it.
Oh! It's Carnegie Institute.
I don't give a damn about Carnegie.
I don't see how those statistics are relevant to this discussion.
Free stuff is never good stuff. Across the board, whether you're American or whatever, free stuff never, although it seems like American citizens can't get free stuff. So in New York, what are we doing? If you have the ability to throw food away, means you have too much food. You have too many options. You have too much free money in your pocket. My mother, sometimes we had bologna sandwiches. Have you ever had a bologna sandwich?
Yes.
And if I didn't like,
sandwich.
and I wanted to throw it away, but you know what? If I would have thrown it away, I would have had another meal called Miss Meal Cramps. Because that was all that was for dinner that night. When you give excess to people who haven't earned it, and that's anyone from any country, this is what we got. We saw in the pandemic with free money, we saw bad behavior. Now we're seeing it with undocumented people who are tearing up hotels like they have another place to go.
Now, what you just saw is this huge amount of food that's been thrown away daily at this big New York City hotel that's being used to house illegal immigrants. Now, according to this whistleblower, more than 36,400 have come to New York City in the last few months, and city officials have put them up in at least 14 hotels, one of them being The Row in Times Square.
Story of thousands of dollars worth of food from migrants tossed in the trash at a Manhattan hotel. That's according to a worker at the Row NYC hotel near Times Square who says large bags of sandwiches, bagels, and other food get thrown out daily because the migrants would rather make their own food.
New York, it's estimated, has spent about $1 billion. That's the estimate on the illegal immigrants in New York City, including the housing that you're seeing.
Raw, cold, and expired. That's how refugees living here at the Row Hotel describe the food they're being served by the city. Residents here point to pasta covered in grease and meatballs still frozen in the middle. They're pushing back today after shelter staff told the New York Post they were wasting tax dollars, refusing to eat the free meals here. This mom of 2 says sometimes the food smells bad, rotten, and every time the children eat the food like that, they get food poisoning.
you don't see this sort of expected gratitude for free housing, free food, obviously shelter in a city where rent is very expensive. You're not seeing a lot of that. Well, Felipe, if all Americans could see what you've witnessed just in the last few months at this hotel, in one sentence, what do you think they'd say?
It's a disgrace.
Well, that sums it up.
And you know, what Mayor Adams and others have done is absolutely wicked. They have encouraged people to come into the United States illegally. First of all, it's an insult to everybody who comes to this country legally, who goes through all of the necessary steps, the expensive steps, the time-wasting steps. All of those people get insulted when you just say, and illegal migrants can come in as well. But the second thing is, this fact of the numbers now coming across the southern borders are historic. This is millions of people every year.
The GM has directed us that we're not allowed to tell them nothing, and practically they have carte blanche.
This has caused a healthcare crisis in the United States. More Americans and people legally here are requiring more healthcare, and all these immigrants coming, they're going to need housing like we're talking about, but they also are going to need healthcare, and we don't have enough doctors, nurses, therapists, and everything else to handle the people we already have, let alone the people coming.
They're needing a lot. They're also getting cell phones and fancy hotel rooms as well.
I am your voice.
All guests in these hotels are offered a food selection that reflects their diets and is prepared the same day to ensure freshness. They say all guests were surveyed about their preferences for food and that they're going to try to avoid waste in the future by only ordering as many sandwiches, for instance, as the residents say they want.